called out of the darkness. What a blissful time it was. After 2 years in the States, earning my doctorate, buying a little Renault 4 in England, and driving through the breathtaking autumn landscapes of Europe, we were going home to Jerusalem. But when we arrived in the port of Piraeus, Greece, to board the car ferry to Haifa, there was no car ferry. Baffled, we went to the tourist police. The policeman looked at us incredulously and he said, "Boom, boom, Israel. Why you won't go Israel?" Boom, boom, Israel? He showed us the newspaper. We didn't need to understand Greek to realize that the drawing of tanks headed to Israel from Syria, Jordan, and Egypt meant war. We stored the car in Athens. Instead of a car ferry, we flew out of Athens in a blacked out plane to a blacked out Lod airport in the middle of the night. My friend went from the airport straight to the army. I went to Jerusalem. My sister Lean was in the States with no key to her flat. I knocked on the neighbor's door. It was 3 o'clock in the morning. "Ani achotel Aline, I'm Aline's sister," I explained. The neighbor threw me a blanket and I slept on the couch. It was a terrible, terrible war. 18 days of slaughter and trauma. On the home front, we rolled bandages at the hospital. Over and over again, the siren sent us to shelters. Beloved family and friends were Esham Ba'aret, somewhere in the country. We had no idea where. In the heart of downtown Jerusalem, a crazed young man was swinging his arms and screaming, "You want to be men or no? You want to be men or no?" Nearly 2,700 Israelis died in the Yom Kippur War of 1973. 9,000 were wounded. We paid shiva calls to relatives whose twin sons were both killed, one in the north and one in the south. Like hundreds of thousands of other young men who fought in that war, my beloved brother-in-law, isolated and repeatedly bombarded in the north, has suffered years of undiagnosed PTSD. And who was I in all of this? I had no idea. For the last 2 years, I had been living on the Brandeis University campus, writing a PhD on perception in the poetry of a visionary romantic English poet. I was lost. The universities opened in March. My beautiful students, who just months ago had been fighting for their lives and ours, somehow sat down to study English literature. The buses ran again. But the wounds of the traumatized country went deep. A scathing commission uncovered the arrogance and incompetence of both the army and the government. Golda Meir resigned. Israel was deep in trauma and mourning. And then, just 4 years later, lights beyond our dreams were lit in Jerusalem. On November 19th, 1977, along with thousands of other jubilant Israelis, my sister and Aline and I cheered our hearts out on King David Street in Jerusalem to welcome someone who in our wildest dreams we would never imagine that we would be cheering. A man who defied the horrors of history and sought a new life for the Middle East. The president of Egypt, Anwar Sadat, came to Jerusalem. Along with thousands of widows, bereaved parents and weary soldiers, we wept our hearts out as we heard his words in the Knesset. Quote, "Why don't we stand together with the bravery of men and the boldness of heroes who dedicate themselves to a sublime objective? Why don't we stand together with the same courage and boldness to erect a huge edifice of peace that builds and does not destroy? Why should we bequeath to the coming generations bloodshed, death, orphans, widowhood, family disintegration, and the wailing of victims?" Yes, yes. Oh, yes, please, God, yes. It was too soon. On the 8th anniversary of the Yom Kippur War, Anwar Sadat was assassinated in Cairo. Still, the light he lit that day through his courage to interrupt history can still illuminate our lives. The psalmist tells us that wherever we are, whatever our lives, we must seek peace and pursue it. I pray we never let that light go out.
Thank you, Rabbi Miriyam. Thank you so much for sharing that story. I had no idea that you were such a close witness to that milchama in our history. We talk on Hanukkah about all the milchamot that were fought in the past and the miracles that were brought. But you were right there for the Yom Kippur War, and I had no idea. And your lifting up of Sadat is something I'll always remember. So thank you. Thank you.